In today's video, we're going to be checking out another printer from Weedo, and it's called the ME40 Pro. And what's interesting about this printer is that it has dual extruders pushing to one hot end. So in this video, we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. All right, so let's get started. Alright, so the M40 comes in this pretty large box, and if we flip it around, we can see the weight and the size of the box. Alright, so let's go ahead and open it up. So we got a carton layer on top, and here we can see the printer. Now, right off the bat, it looks like we got some parts that are loose, at least this plate here. So this is a metal sheet, and you guys can see it has got a Built-X sticker on top of it, and it is semi-flexible, so maybe helps out with larger prints, but smaller prints, obviously, there's not enough flex there. So we do have a wrinkled up quick start guide. Kind of goes through how to set it up and also use it. So I definitely like that they included a quick start guide, but for some reason it's really wrinkled up. So first impressions of the printer is it does seem a little clumsy with the packaging. We got random zip tie here that's just laying. Now if you guys notice that we have a really large build surface, and this is a 300 by 300 and also prints 400 millimeters tall. And right away I can see that the bed will need to be adjusted, but that's, you know, normal stuff there. I'm definitely not too crazy about how they packed it, because it just seems like it's all just thrown in there, and I don't know if that's to save on packing or what, but in any case, let's go ahead and pull out the base. And we do have a nice large touchscreen in the front, so we're going to take a look at all the details here in a bit. Let's move this out of the way for now. So it looks like we do get 2 spools of filament, so there is quite a bit of foam all around the printer, so that's good to see. So there is a pretty large box. Accessories, and there's a list here of everything that's included, and we're going to open this up in a second. So let's go ahead and pull out the gantry, which is the upper portion of the printer. And here, guys, we can see we have dual Z-axes, so that's nice to see. We can see the 2 extruders. We are using Bowden tube. So even though we do have the dual rods, they are not tethered together. So I do like to see them tethered, because it does make it harder to keep this thing level, because one side can, you know, offset from the other. But we'll see how this printer does. And here we can see the Y split into the hot end for the dual filament entry. So overall, everything looks pretty good, but we do need to adjust and check everything for sure. I'm going to move this out of the way. And that looks like everything for the box, so I would have liked to see a little bit more attention to packing in between the printer and the items inside. Alright, so I got the base here on the table. For the next part, let's go ahead and see what we got in this box. So there's quite a bit of parts in there. So here it looks like we have a bag of tools, some grease, zip ties, our micro SD card, the micro SD card adapter to USB, and an extra limit switch. We also get a USB cable to connect from the printer to the computer. The power cord, and it is kind of short, are parts to the spool holders, and there are 2 of them. A pretty large spatula that is somewhat sharpened. A knife and a glue stick. Looks like 2 T-brackets for the frame reinforcements. And some hardware bolts and T-nuts. And that's everything. Alright, so before we do anything, let's go ahead and flip this printer around. And what I want to do is take off this plate here so we can see the electronics inside. So let's grab our bag of tools here. And by the way, these wrenches that are included are for adjusting the eccentric nuts and also for the nozzle removal. So there are 8 bolts holding the plate. All right, so all the bolts are out and the cover just pops right off. And by the way, we do have these nice squishy rubber feet on the bottom on all 4 corners. So let's take a closer look so we can see the power supply. It appears to be a 480 watts, 24 volt, 20 amps. So a little bigger than normal. All the connectors seem to be nicely crimped and routed. There we have the power input. This board here looks like is for the switch here that you can power on and off without using the dedicated switch on the side, which by the way also supports the auto off feature in this printer. This is the touchscreen display board. And down here it looks like we have a Wi-Fi module. So it looks like this printer does have Wi-Fi capabilities. And here we have the main board. So the main board is using that processor. Hopefully you guys can see that's the processor there. And we do have heatsink stepper drivers, but they are definitely not removable. So they are integrated into the main board. So I'm not too sure the brand of this board, but we can see down there in the corner there's something there. And towards the back there we have a cooling fan that cools off the board itself. So yeah, overall everything looks pretty good and tidy. Some of the wires do look like they're a bit stretched and pulled, like this one here a little bit. But so if we go down here, we can see the bottom of our frame on the bed. And so the way the y-axis frame is made out of these 2 pieces, which I like that it's wide, and then we're using wheels, 3 on each side, to clamp around that. So this gives a lot of stability, and that's great because this is quite a large bed. And also talking about the bed, we can see that it is insulated, so that's really nice to see, especially for this size. Our y-axis stepper motor and these brackets here for the feet. All right, so I'm gonna put the cover back on. And after that, since we got the printer upside down, I think we should go ahead and adjust the rollers on the bed. With this setup here, we're going to have 3 stationary wheels and then 3 adjustable ones. So these will adjust farther and closer to the channel. So we can see that we have play. So we're going to start with, let's say right here. So what you want to do is you want to clamp this together where this is completely loose, and you want to feel how loose it is. So it's actually pretty good on both sides. That's fine. So let's go to the next one. We'll clamp this together, and this is way too loose, so there's no drag on it whatsoever. So we're going to grab our wrench and we're going to turn the eccentric nut under there to the direction where it gets closer until we get some clamping force. But what we're looking for is a very slight drag. You don't want to be too close. And so now we got friction on both of these. So let's go ahead and go back to these and check, make sure these still are good. And they look like they're still the same. And now we have the last pair here. So let's go ahead and do that. And this one is a little loose. So not as loose as the middle, but still loose. All right, so that should be good there. So because most of the weight is on the top right now, it's a little bit harder to judge how well this is adjusted. So we're gonna flip it over and check it like this now, and it does feel pretty good. So there is no slop that I can tell. So if you feel like there's anything, you know, like jumping around or catching or just doesn't feel right, just keep adjusting those rollers until you get it right. All right, so let's go ahead and cut these zip ties loose. All right, so for the next part, we're going to install the gantry on top of the base. And there are 2 holes here that go through the channel. So let's go ahead and grab our bolts. So they are going to be the large black ones. So we're simply going to grab our gantry and set it over with the nozzle pointing to the front. So because there's plenty of room here, it's quite easy to get to it. Now the only thing that you do have to be careful is when there's some wires underneath, and you just got to make sure you don't pinch those. Yeah, we're just going to line it up and start the bolts, and we're not going to be tightening them up all the way yet. And the reason for that is because we have to get the other side on first. All right, so now we're going to flip the printer and do the same thing here. And we can go ahead and snug this side up really good. Back to the other side. All right, and that's it. We're nice and tight. And so since we're over here, let's go ahead and install these strengthening brackets here on the end. So what you're going to need for this is a bolt and a T-nut in this configuration on all of the holes. And this is what it will look like. Now, if you've never used T-nuts, it's quite simple. You can see that it's got a more narrow side, and then when it turns, it's larger. And so what happens is it goes into this channel by lining up the T-nuts. It'll go inside of it. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to spin it, and the T-nut on the other side is going to turn and then lock into the channel. So it literally turns inside and locks in as you tighten it. Now you do have to, make sure that you're pretty aligned with the channel, and also if you have to, back it up and then go forward again to tighten it. if there's any issues. But yeah, it's actually quite simple once you understand what's going on. They're actually quite convenient. So yeah, that's tight, and I definitely like that they included this bracket here because it really stiffens up the upper portion, and that's quite important because we're going to have 2 spool holders on the very top holding filament. So we're going to do exactly the same thing to the other side. Line it up and tighten it up. And also you do want to start with this middle one here because you can't see it. All these you can peek through the side and see if the T-nut turned. And also don't tighten these little bolts too hard because they are quite small, and plus when you do tighten them hard, you're going to pull on the channel too hard and bend it. Alright, so both sides are on. So let's go ahead and put on the spool holders. We'll grab our parts, and there are 2 of each piece. So this is our spool holder, and we can see it has an angle, and the angle is actually going to lean towards the back, so this way. Now on the pipe part, we got some plastic nuts, and the pipe itself is actually metal or aluminum, so that's quite nice. So the one with the 2 nuts on one side, we're going to take one off, and then we're going to go through the bracket and start the nut on the other side. And turning the pipe with your hand is the easiest way to tighten it up. So just like that. But before we can install it, we still need to put in our little bolts and T-nuts like we did earlier. And just like that. And the spool holder is installed on the very top channel. Now what you want to do is you want to line up the center of the spool to be about where the center of the hole is. So you want this to line up to the spool holder center. I'm just going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be obviously perfect, but go ahead and tighten it, and there we have. So I built the other side, and that's going to go right here. So once you line it up, we're just going to tighten it up, and we are done with these spool holders. All right, so for the next part, we just need to plug in a few wires, and believe it or not, guys, it all is quite simple. They're not labeled, but very easy to tell where they go. So this one down here goes to the Z-axis motor right there. This large one here plugs in to the extruder assembly. And then we have 2 more plugs, and one of them's for the X-axis motor, and the other one's for the switch, if you guys can see, but it's inside there, the X-axis switch. So there were some zip ties included, so we can go ahead and clean these wires up a bit by zip tying them together. That should be good. And pretty much the same thing on the other side. We got the Z-axis motor, and then we got the longer wire here for the extruder motor. And simple as that, we are done with plugging in the wiring. So let's go ahead and cut the zip tie here. And I want to go ahead and adjust the hot end, and you guys can see it's really loose. So these 2 rollers here are stationary, and the one on the bottom adjusts. So same thing we did on the bed. We're just going to spin that eccentric nut. All right, so once you adjust that, there should be no wobble, and the motion should be smooth throughout the X-axis travel. So yeah, guys, so far the assembly process is quite simple. So let's go ahead and put our build platform back on. And the way it secures is there's these little tabs that go around, and they're very bendable, so if you have to, pinch them a little bit so they can grab. And just like that, we've assembled the whole printer. And you guys can see that it is quite large, so make sure you do have a room for it. So we do have a 300 by 300 by 400 print volume, which is quite nice. So starting up here, we got the 2 spool holders, and they do feed down straight to the extruders. We can see we have the dual elite screws, and they do have like these little bracket here that kind of, I guess, guides it on both sides. So still wish they were tethered, but we'll see how that goes with this printer. So going down, we have 2 extruders, and the assembly itself is injected molded plastic, but it does seem to be pretty good. There's a smooth pressure, and they are the same on both sides. Now on this side, we have the junction box with the main plug, and this is the wiring here that goes to the hot end. So overall, the wiring management is quite clean and minimal. So as we go down, we can see we got the 2 motors, and it looks like about half linked couplers. Let's take a quick look here at the hot end from the back side, so we can see the 2 PTFE tubings coming in. We do have an induction sensor, and that's actually also our Z-axis offset, the rollers, and underneath we can see the sensor, the heating block, and the parts cooling fan duct, which is 3D printed. So going down, we have the Y-axis motor and the end stop switch here. So overall, pretty clean printer, lots of room between the bottom of the table and underneath. So it does sit up quite high, and you guys can see the feet in the back. We do have that nice rubber foot on each corner. So for the bed, we have that sheet that's removable, which is nice. And also it's just nice to remove the sheet to pull the models off without putting so much pressure on the bed frame and rollers. So the bed is quite thin. It's just that sheet on the top and then aluminum for the heated part. And it is insulated, which is excellent to see. It's definitely a must for this size of a bed. The frame of the bed does look pretty robust, and we do have these little knobs to adjust the corners up and down. Alright, so we're back to the front of the printer. Let's go ahead and look at the hot end here from the front. So we can see again the PTF heat tubing is going into the heat break. We got a little warning sticker, pretty large fan for the heat break cooling, and then our axial parts cooling fan. And you guys can see the top of the sensor there. It does have a little light. So going this way, this is where our X-axis end stop switch is. And that's where it's going to hold. And on the other end, we do have an adjustable idler pulley. So going down from there, it's all pretty clean and nice looking, but we do have something interesting here, and that is, looks like the Wi-Fi antenna. It's coming out of the main board there from that hole. So yeah, definitely like the white frame, very stable bed. Going to the front here, we got a really large touchscreen display with a power on and off button that's separate from the main power switch here on the side. We got a nice logo on the right side. And if we keep going, we can see here, this is where we're going to insert our micro SD card and also our USB connection to connect to the computer. So this button is a push button here. So going to the left side of the printer, we have the manufacturer sticker, all the details about the printer. Then we got our power input port. It is fused with an on and off switch. And if we go completely behind, we can see that we have a fan here. But more importantly, what you want to do is you want to check your voltage settings. And looking at mine, I can see that it's on 115, and that's where it needs to be. So make sure you check that before you power on the printer. All right, so I got the printer plugged in. Let's go ahead and hit the power button here on the side. And the fans do come on, but the display does not. And the reason for that is because we have to push this button here. The thing I don't like about this is that you still have to shut off the printer. So the auto shut off feature that it does have will only turn off the display, or at least the power to the board, but not, it looks like, the power supply. So kind of seems a little strange. But in any case, let's go ahead and power it on. So we can see our button lights up here. We get the intro logo, and there it is. It's booted up. So with this printer, before you do anything, we need to first level out our X-axis. And the reason for that is because the sensor that offsets our Z-axis can only compensate so much. And also, if we want the bed to be straight with the frame, we have to first get this horizontal line straight with the frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically take something, I'm going to use the glue stick here, and we're going to measure between the two sides to make sure they're equal. Like this one needs to go up just a little bit, and this one is just right. So yeah, that's pretty close right there. And this is what happens when you don't tether the Z-axis, is you have this constant problem of one side being lower or higher than the other. So you have to be really careful and not bump it off while the printer is not locked and holding them. Another thing you want to do right away is you want to compress all your springs on the bed on the four corners about halfway. Again, because we have a sensor on the hot end, there's no hard point anywhere, so the hard point is going to be the bed itself. And you want to compress it about halfway, because then you can go up or down a bit from there when we do the leveling. So I'm not sure you guys can see or not, but here on the display we have the wrong language. Well, I hope we can figure out how to change it here. So I think this is it right here. Man, this is, no, that wasn't it. Okay, there we go. So that's it. So settings, and then this, and then English is right here, just in case yours comes in with Chinese. Actually, what was that? Okay, Spanish was the other language. Interesting. So for the next part, let's go to maintenance. And here we can see we have a few options. And if we click next, we can get to the next set of options. Well, let's go ahead and preheat here. The bed and the nozzle. I'm going to go 60 on the bed, and let's just go 210 on the nozzle. Okay, so it's going to preheat that. And they both appear to be working because they're both going up. And here you guys can see how quick it heats up. So the nozzle is definitely boogieing along pretty quickly. Actually, impressively quickly. I think it's going to be to full temperature easily within a minute. And the bed is not doing too bad itself. We got to consider how large it is. So yeah, the nozzle definitely got there within a minute. And the bed looks like will take about 2 minutes, maybe 3 by the time it gets to 60. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to the jog mode. And here on the jog mode, you can see we can control everything individually, but we also have a return home button here on the bottom. So let's click that. and we're gonna see if all of our axes work. So the X, the Y, and now the Z coming down. So hopefully our sensor there is working. Okay, and it is. It stopped just in time, and actually it looks pretty good where it's at. So everything is coming to temperature, which is good, because what we're going to do next is level the bed. And you guys can see we have the hot button for that. So let's click on that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust the 4 points on each side. And I'm just going to use a sticky note. So let's click begin. It's going to our first corner. Alright, so it's going all the way up. I think this is part of the calibration process that it does. I'm going to bring this thing up so you guys can see. So it's definitely stretching our wires a bit. Okay, now it's completely crashed into the top. And I think it's interesting, but this is how it, I guess, straightens itself out. As it goes to the very top and it thinks that's straight, which I don't really like this process, to be honest. I think this is a barbaric way to do it, but we're just gonna go with what it's doing and hopefully it'll all work out. I'll lower back down. All right, so now it's going to the corner. And so right off the bat, we are too low, I guess. Okay, so that's good there. Click next. All right, that's pretty good there. So what we're doing here is we're roughly setting the corners so they're all pretty much equal. All right. All right, so I guess it's done now, which is kind of interesting. So let's try to go to the Z-axis offset, see what that is all about. So technically that's offsetting our Z-axis up and down, and apparently that is also our out of bed leveling calibration. So once you do the bed leveling and it does the 4 corners, so it roughly gets the bed level, and then after that you click on the Z-axis offset, and this is where it's going to take measurements. Now, a little bit confusing here, but it is working. And then it should go to the middle. All right, and so now it's asking us to go up or down with the offset. Now the bed is not hot anymore, cooled off a bit, it's just warm. Once it heats up, I think our gap will be fine again. So I'm just gonna go a little bit lower, 0.1 millimeters, and save it there. So we're gonna click save, and that should register everything. So technically our bed should be pretty level right now, and our offset should be good. So let's go ahead and preheat again. And while it's heating up, we'll grab our filament that was included. So we got red and white. They are vacuum sealed. It's nice that they actually included little spools. It's so much better than just open coils. So we're gonna put one spool on one side and the other on the other, and then we're gonna bring the filament down and feed it into the extruder. I'm gonna go ahead and push it down. Not all the way, because we do have a split here, a Y. I'm going to let the machine figure out which one to push, but I think our main extruder is probably on that side. So I guess let's try the filament feed here. Okay, so it's asking what we're feeding, PLA, and then we got left and right nozzle. Interesting. I guess I'll just go ahead with the left nozzle. So it looks like it's going to heat up. All right, and now it's pushing through, I think. There it goes. So it's purging it. It looks like we had some green in there. And now the red coming out. All right, so I guess we are good to go. So we got our filament loaded, the bed leveled, everything's preheated. Let's grab our little micro SD card that was included. And by the way, it is an 8 gig. And I'm gonna plug it here on the right side, and it does go in upside down. So now we're gonna click on print, and here we can see we do have a few G codes available. All right, so I think, I'm not sure exactly which one to start with, but we'll just start with the first one here where it says butter.gco. So we'll just click on that and see what happens. So there it goes. So it looks like it activated. I'll get you guys a little closer. All right, so it appears that it's taking measurements of the bed. So I guess every time it starts a new print, it's going to take a measurement, which is probably a good thing, because those dual Z-axes not being tethered, there's a chance they're going to be off. So that's kind of cool that it does it every time. to make sure it's going to print level. It does take a little bit of time, but not too bad though. It retracted the filament and now it's pushing it back in. I'm sure exactly what the point of that is. Okay, so it's actually doing both of them. Okay, so it's purging the right side now. It looks like it's going a little too fast because it's skipping. Alright. Okay, so the print started, but we are too high off the bed. We need to go down some. So I think we need to stop this print and I'll lower it down a bit. Pull all this off. I'm going to go in the controls here and do the offset again. Alright, so this time around our bed is much hotter and we're going to go down even more. Alright, so that feels about right. So I don't think I need to go more than that. So I'm minus 0.6 millimeters. So let's save it. And that should be good. So I'm going to restart that print. All right, it looks like we're good now. It's still going a little too fast for that first layer. I'm gonna try to slow it down here a little bit. So it just went to speed and clicked on 50%. Okay, to slow it down. But yeah, it looks like we're sticking to the bed now and everything is fine. So while it's printing, let's check out this menu real quick. This is what we see while it's printing. We got the status here, the file name, the speed. We turned it down to 50% at the moment for the first layer. The nozzle temperature, the bed temperature, the time passed, and the time remaining, which is 7 hours and 35 minutes. Seems kind of crazy, and it keeps going up for some reason, so we'll see. And now here we have the progress bar, which is also the percentage at 1%. Then we got hot buttons of quit, pause, and settings. Under settings, we can change the filament, control the temperature of the bed and nozzle, control the speed, also turn off the auto power. All that's going to do is turn off the screen, so the power supply will still be running. And here we have save and off, and I think this saves the project and powers off. And I'm guessing later you can come back and resume it when you're ready. So yeah, pretty nice and intuitive menu here with pretty good controls. So far everything is looking really good. Once I slowed it down to 50%, because whatever it was printing at was way too quick, it seems like it's sticking and everything looks good. So we're just gonna let it print and we'll see what comes out. All right, so we're printing away and everything looks good, and it looks like some kind of butterfly. So we've done 23%, about 40 minutes, and we got 2 hours and 14 minutes left. All right, so our first print is done and the display turned off on its own, but the power supply is still running underneath. So the bed is slightly warm. Let's see how easy this comes off. Okay, so it's popping off pretty easily. Well, maybe a little too easy. I broke it already. Definitely should be more careful with this kind of print. There's a lot of pieces to it because it's one of those flexible butterflies. Maybe let's take off the sheet on the top, see if we can flex it a bit. Okay, so flexing it actually helps. We did get some leftovers here, a layer. Well, because I wasn't very careful, I ended up breaking it. Maybe we can put it back together somewhat. There we go. So the way this thing is sliced, it's a little bit too thin and way too light, so it's very fragile. But look at that, with all the wings and the pieces, it printed very nicely. And what I could tell, the layers are sitting pretty well overall. All right, well that's cool. So I'm kind of liking these tabs here because you can quickly release it and then put it back, so that's pretty nice. All right, so the butterfly worked out. I think the next one we should try is this dual FI. So that must be a dual color print, and that's pretty exciting to try that. So we'll see what this is going to be. So yeah, it probes the bed, looks like every time. All right, so let's see what it does this time. All right, so I guess it's purging the white. Okay, I need to slow it down again. I don't know why they have such high speeds on the first layer. All right, so it looks like it's also a similar print. So I'm not sure if it's going to be another butterfly, but I guess we'll find out. So it's changing color, so it's making a tower, it looks like. And it changed to the red filament. And this is what it's printed on the first layer so far, with the white on this side. There you can see that it's changing to the red. So it is going to do a purge block on the side. All right, and it's going back to the printing now with the red color. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, we'll see how well this turns out. All right, so it looks like it's done with the red and it's retracting and now moving. Well, that was kind of random. Okay, so now it's taking in the white. Then going back to the purge block and continues to purge there. Alright, well that seems to work pretty good so far. I don't see any issues. And our little fish here is starting to look pretty interesting. So it looks like we got some white and red linkages. And we'll see how it turns out. So as we're printing and everything looks good so far, there is an issue that arose. And I don't know if you guys can hear, but these Z-rods over here are kind of flopping around and making a lot of noise. Same thing on this side. And another thing I noticed is this one's sticking out a lot more than the other one. Which is kind of strange, but yeah, since this is metal and the lead is metal, when it flaps around, it makes a lot of noise. I might have to put some kind of inserts in there or around the lead of something. It's not terrible, but it is there. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And speaking about the sound and noise, the printer overall is quite quiet. So it does have the silent steppers. I'm gonna bring the microphone in. So yeah, overall it's pretty quiet. The loudest thing at the moment is those Z-axis rods bouncing around. And overall I'd say quite quiet. Alright, and our fish is done also now. Let's see how easy this thing comes off. Hopefully I'm not going to break this one. Okay, I think I am already. Let's try flexing the bed, even though there's not much to flex here, but it does seem to cut it loose a bit easier. Okay, so the purge block came off pretty good. Okay, so just massaging it around a little bit, it's popping off. So we do still have, for some reason, the filament not sticking well to itself. Looks like with this print here, we have about half of our filament go into the purge block and half of it into the model itself. And looking at the print, we're definitely having a good separation between the red and white filament. So yeah. The part that kind of impresses me is that there's no kind of seepage or blobs of any kind between the two colors, and that's quite important to really enjoy the dual color printing. The layers, where you can see them, if you guys can, they're sitting very evenly, seems like, so, but it's really hard to tell on these colors. But I'm happy that everything is working and seems like there's no issues whatsoever so far. So I'm going to go ahead and print out whatever else is on the card. So I printed another print from the SD card and I had a little bit of a chaos happening. So it looks like to be some kind of reindeer or something. And there were some supports here on the side. Looks like his antlers got messed up. Yeah, I guess the supports didn't made it all the way up or something. But not only that, I also had the purge block break off, and I ended up using some tape to tape over just the stuff that was oozing around, and surprisingly it started another one on top of that. So I was able to finish this print, but we did have a bit of a mess, as you guys can see here. So I'm not sure how this little guy's gonna come off. I guess flexing this thing really does help because I can hear it breaking loose somewhat. Not completely, looks like, but somewhat. Well, let's see if we can carefully get this guy off of there. Okay, well that wasn't too bad. That came off a lot easier than I thought it would. So it looks like his feet do function. Just gotta clean up this supports all around. Unfortunately, his antlers didn't make it though. Well, I think I just broke the whole thing loose. Well, it's gonna be a reindeer with no antlers. How about that? And it seems like all these prints are quite fragile the way they're sliced. They're extremely light and quite hollow. So yeah, I try to clean it up here a bit, and it's quite a weak model. Everything is kind of crumbling away, which is kind of weird. I also broke his tail just by barely touching it. So I'm not sure what these feet are supposed to do, but they're all falling apart. That's a pretty fun little print. Oh, there he goes. He's finally standing. Reindeer with no antlers and no tail and really crooked feet. So we're almost 12 hours into printing the vase that was included with the printer, and we do have an issue, and quite a severe one. As you guys can see, we have under extrusion. And I believe what's happening is it's getting caught up here on the arms because they are plastic. It's eating into them and catching, making it difficult to push it through. And so after I made some slack by pulling on them just so it's more slack, you guys can see the top is, you know, getting better. But for some reason the bronze there is still not doing well. So not too sure what's going on, but it's hanging up either in the tube. The extruder arms are wearing in. And that's one of the issues of feeding filament down from the top. It's going to eat into that plastic. So I wish they would have used metal here. That would have sure helped a lot. So I definitely don't want to keep printing this print because, you know, it's pretty ugly already. Well, let's go ahead and cancel it. I'm going to click on quit. Yes. And it stopped. So yeah, the bottom started off really nice. And as it went up, we started having issues. And I definitely know that part of it is snatching because, you know, once I gave it slack, it's at least the blue here started printing much nicer. Well, actually the bronze also, because down here nothing was, so it's definitely snatching. All right, so I continued to print, and after having this issue with the vase, it seems like the problem's not going away. So this is another print here that you see on the bed that I started, and it's having the same issue here, and I'm starting to think that it's not the snagging as much as it is something in here. So I did print a few prints here as test prints, which is a benchy and some calibration cubes, and you guys can see that the benchy has this weird pattern on it. All of it like that, and no matter what prints, it just looks that bad, and it seems like the more I print, the worse it looks. So these are 3 different cubes that I tried to adjust a few things, and then this other one here is a whole different filament, thinking maybe it was filament, but yeah, it just has this really weird pattern in it. So anything I try to print after that vase is not really turning out, or at least doesn't look normal at all. Judging by this dual color print I started here, I'm having under extrusion problems, and I made sure it wasn't snatching, and sure enough, it has to do something with the hot end and this Y bracket here. And looking at it a little closer, I didn't notice, but that all is actually 3D printed there, which could be maybe some of the issue. So I think what I'm going to do next is take this apart and look inside what's going on. Alright, so I got the hot end parts apart. It wasn't very hard to take out. There's just a couple bolts on each side here on the shroud. Just unbolted this from there, 2 little bolts. Took the PTFE tubings out. Looking at it all, I think this is our issue here. So this piece here, this Y bracket, is 3D printed. Now there's nothing wrong with 3D printed except for maybe heat, but you know, as long as this is getting cooled off, this doesn't get very hot. And this is probably PETG or something here, so it should withstand the heat with no issues. But the issue appears to be not the heat, you know, just the nature of how this works. So the filament goes through the top here and then has to go through, you know, at an angle here. So you guys saw that this one went, well, now it won't go back in, but the problem is it won't go through unless you kind of twist it around and it feeds through. And this one's even worse. It just won't go through no matter what. Okay, there it goes. So because it's 3D printed, I think on the inside of it, it has layers that, you know, instead of the filament smoothly sliding in there and turning, it gets caught up in those layers. Well, every time it comes out, it just can't go back in. So I think the issue here, or part of the issue here, is getting caught up in the Y part of it. So I'm not sure exactly what the remedy for this would be. I might stick something in there and try to clean it out a bit, that way it's smoother. Maybe that'll help. But honestly, like, this is a very, very critical part of the printer or the printing process. I feel like this should not have been a 3D printed part. This just doesn't make any sense for this to be a 3D printing part, especially sitting on the heat break. This thing is warm, or it could be warm, I guess, with higher temperatures. But not just that, this is a functional part where filament has to be pushed through and also curved as it goes in. So it's, you know, because it's 3D printed, it's going to wear out much faster. I feel like, you know, if they could use all this aluminum here, they could have used a little more aluminum to, you know, finish it off. But in any case, I'm going to try to see if I can maybe file it down on the inside somehow. Maybe take a small drill bit and go in there kind of smoothly and just kind of clean it up. And hopefully that'll fix the issue. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so I put everything back together and started the print that I was printing earlier. And it looks all really good so far. What I can tell, it's only on its second layer, I think. But yeah, it's going down really nicely. see any issues at the moment, but we'll see how it goes here. And I'm not sure if the pattern that I'm getting in this benchy here has anything to do with that, but hopefully that's going to go away. Alright, so it's changing filament right now. So I pulled out the bronze and pushed the black back in, and now it's purging. So it does have a purge block there, which is a circle. And by the way, I am using the provided software to slice this. And speaking of software, let's go ahead and go to the computer. We'll go over really quickly how to get a colored print sliced. Alright guys, so here we are at the computer, and what you're looking at is the Cura slicer. And so whenever you install the program, you're going to be greeted with this here, and you can see here we have the custom Weedo profiles here with all their printers. And down here we can see it's the Weedo ME40 Pro. That's what you're going to choose, and click add. And once you do that, this is what you will see. So this is the printing volume of the printer, which is pretty large, you can see here. So Cura is pretty simple to use. Let's go ahead and just throw a file in there. And by the way guys, if you hear something in the background, clicking sounds, it's those rods on the printer jumping around. Let's go ahead and do the astronaut. So what you're going to need is a file that has two separate parts to it. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to choose which extruder is going to do what. So depending on what colors you want where, you're going to choose 1 and 2. So we're going to click on one of the parts, and it's going to highlight it, and then we're going to right click. And here you can see that it's on the first extruder. If we go to this one, it's also on the first one. So in order to change it, we're going to choose the number 2 here, and it's going to change it. You can see the color kind of got darker a bit. Get a little bit closer here. So simple as that. Now the slicer knows that we have 2 different colors, or it could be 2 different materials depending, you know, what project you're working on. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to combine these 2 parts together. So what you're going to do is you're going to select one, and then you're going to click shift and highlight the other one, and we can see that they're both highlighted. And after that, we're going to right click and go down here to merge models, and once we click that, it's going to put them together. So here you can really see what's going to be what. So on the print I'm printing right now, the bronze is going to be this darker color, and the black is going to be the yellow color. So just for reference here. But yeah, once you get to this point, you're just pretty much doing the usual after that. So here you got some hot buttons for moving the model around, put it wherever you want, and then scaling it, rotating it around, and doing some other options here. So if we go here to the top where we put in our parameters, and we just click on it, here we can set all these settings. So I didn't go through this too much, but I kind of set on the standard that I normally use, which here we are doing 0.2 millimeter layer height. So it's a much quicker print. Because this is dual color, and because there is a prime tower, it's going to take a while to print either way you look at it. Now one thing I absolutely like to do on my prints is make the wall count to 3. It just makes better walls. And the rest is pretty basic. This is our infill here, temperature, retraction, print speed. So I'm printing everything at 50. It's usually the standard I use. Yeah, so pretty basic stuff. But here we have dual extrusion prime tower. Obviously you're going to have to, use this if you want to get the clean transitions between the colors. And so here you kind of enter the prime tower size and the amount you want it to purge. And so it looks like 85 here is pretty good for me, and this can be adjusted to be a little bigger or smaller depending. I think it could be a bit smaller at this point. In any case, this is the parameters that I have. So pretty basic stuff. Now the important part is this is only for first extruder. The second extruder has to be also adjusted. So if you click up here on number 2, you can see here that everything is the same, but it's because I went in here and changed it all. So let's say if you change the wall count here from 3 to 2, when I go back to the first extruder, you can see it's 3 here. On the second one, it's 2. So you got to make sure that, you adjust both of the extrusions, or you're going to be way off, and, it's going to seem like something's wrong. And most likely it's because your other extruder or extrusion is not adjusted at all. So don't forget about that. But yeah, once you get it all how you want it, you're going to click on slice down here, and it's going to slice it. So here it says it's going to take 12 hours and 27 minutes. Let's preview it. And this time is probably not correct because of this prime tower. It's probably going to take closer to twice as long, but who knows, maybe not. But here we can see what we can expect out of the whole print. And because, we have a prime tower here, you guys can see how much material we're going to be wasting just, to change colors in between. So And this is the downfall of a, you know, dual color printer like this, is that you have to purge somewhere, and that is some waste there. So, but not the end of the world if this is, you know, what you're looking for. In any case, so this is how you'd slice it. Then you just save the file to wherever you want, and then eventually get it to your printer through the SD card, or you can do it through USB to send it straight to the printer. Alright, so back to the printer here, we can see that so far it's been 1 hour and 46 minutes since I started, and we got 11% done. So yeah, now it says 14 hours 23 minutes, so yeah, maybe it is a little closer to what I was saying. So it looks like it will take about 15-16 hours, I guess. Now as far as the print itself, so far everything is going really good, and it does look quite smooth overall. What I can see, the color change is quite good too. It's not bleeding into each other. And our prime tower here is looking a little rough, but I think that part doesn't really matter since that's where it's priming. So yeah, I think overall everything is okay. I can definitely tell that it seems to be much better now than it was before, since I cleaned out this Y here. I don't think the filament is getting stuck anywhere when it's going in and out between the two. So even though it's been 2 hours and I have no issues, I'm gonna have to leave this overnight, and I'm definitely feeling a little nervous because, you know, it might fail while I'm not here. Technically, it shouldn't be too big of an issue here. Hopefully it'll be all right, and it'll print the rest of the way up, and we'll see what this thing turns out to be like. Alright guys, so there's bad news. Right before I was about to leave this thing alone for the night, I noticed that it was under extruding and basically not printing anymore. I had to turn it off, and so it's the next day. And honestly, I don't really know exactly what's going on, but something is jamming in here. And it could be the PTFE tubing liner inside, or maybe the nozzle. But I mean, we did get a pretty good start though. Let's see if I can pull this off. Oh, I just broke it in half. There's definitely under extrusion happening, and definitely hard for the extruder to push it through. And also with all the retractions and insertions, you know, every time it retracts, it has a little blob at the end of the filament. I have a feeling that just the design itself and how it works makes it very vulnerable to clogging. So unless all this stuff is right here, you know, nothing's gonna work. And that's what it seems like I'm having an issue with here. And even on our first prints here that were included, I could tell that they're not perfect. And there is some weirdness going on to them too. And it's not as severe as what I'm getting now when I start slicing my own files. But this bowl here was included with the printer also, and it just shows that this is when the problem revealed itself, and it just doesn't seem to want to go away after that. So I'm going to try to print one more thing, which is a spiralized spaceship, and not sure how far along we can go with that, but we will see what happens. And by the way, I also figured out that you can't use the two individual extruders for some reason. So this is extruder 1, or the right side, and the extruder 2, the left side. If I assign that to do the job, for some reason the right one still does it anyway. It's like it overrides it in the printer. So unless you're doing color printing, this one always defaults as your main extruder. I was trying to print with this one to see if there's any difference between the two, but it didn't let me do that. So alright, so I started the spaceship in spiralized mode, and it's sliced at 0.2 millimeters, layer height with 50 millimeters a second speed, and it should be 400 millimeters tall, so we'll see how it goes. But as it's printing in the meantime, I just want to, you know, talk about my overall experience with this thing so far. You know, starting with unboxing it, I was a little disappointed on how it was packed. Kind of got a little bit of a, you know, negative vibe from there, but technically that wasn't too bad or anything, and you know, the printer came in safely, and putting this thing together was quite simple, and that's a pretty big plus there. Now, I wasn't too happy to see that the rods weren't tethered. So far I had no issue with that whatsoever, so I haven't bumped this off, but even if I did a little bit, you know, it's gonna correct it every time it prints, so that's a good feature there. Also wasn't too happy seeing these plastic extruder assemblies. You know, that's understandable somewhat, but I feel like, you know, they need to be metal. And also this printer does not have filament detection, which is okay, but if a print does fail or filament breaks and print fails, there's no way to continue that project. It'll just have to restart. And for having this large of a size, that, you know, could be an issue. Now, speaking about the rods, you know, they also bang around in the back, so you know, that was something a little bit, seemed like an oversight to me, because when you have two metal pieces so close together and it wobbles around, you know, you're gonna have noise. Another thing to find out that was a little disappointing was this Y bracket here that combines the filament into one being 3D printed. It does appear to be very well 3D printed, but at the end of the day, it's still a 3D printed part, and it's critical, and that's kind of a downer in my opinion. But without having the issue with whatever the issue is that I'm having, overall the printer seems to work very well as far as getting the print started and printing, and bed leveling has not been an issue whatsoever, and that's a big part of it, and so this printer does well there. I definitely like how this bed removes, because for something larger, like we will see if we get a chance to take the spaceship off, we'll see how well this flexing works. And even on smaller prints, I noticed that it helps a lot. And it's nice that you can take it off really quick with these clips, even on smaller models, because when you're taking it off, you don't want to, be pushing on the bed too much side to side, putting stress on the frame and rollers. So I like how the build surface is removable and somewhat flexible. Another great thing about the printer is that it is quite quiet, so there's not very much noise as it's printing, since it does have the silent steppers. So that's a plus there. Now, one thing that's also not so great is the auto shut off, because it doesn't completely shut off the printer. It just shuts off the screen and I guess the main board, but the power supply still runs the fan. So that feature seems to me a little useless unless I don't understand what the benefit of that is. Now, on the plus side, you do have Wi-Fi, and you can communicate with the printer through Wi-Fi if you want to do that, so that's pretty cool. So overall, I think it's a good printer. If I didn't have an issue with whatever I'm having, and I feel like it's probably isolated just to me and this printer, and these kind of things happen once in a while where I'll have an issue with the printer and there's just nothing I can really do about it. The point of these reviews, or one of the points, is to show you guys how it is out of the box and how it really is. If there's something small that I can adjust to make it better, I will do that and comment on it, or suggest certain things that I think would make it better. And because we're trying to evaluate it as it comes out of the box, so this is what I'm getting with this printer. Now, it doesn't mean that this is what you'll get if you buy this printer, but judging by my experience here, I will say that there is a chance the printer is a little more vulnerable than normal because of the design and what it is. Now, with the design, because it feeds both of these through a Y into one hot end, this is where the vulnerability somewhat is, because anytime you retract the filament completely out and then push it back in, there's going to be a little blob at the end of it. And if you've been printing, you know what I'm talking about. And unless everything is completely perfect, once you push the filament back in there, if it has any kind of resistance anywhere, it's going to start dragging and not wanting to go in, completely just get clogged and not do anything. And it seems like this is exactly the issue that I'm having, or at least what it appears to be. But I'm not completely sure, because I'm getting a strange pattern. Makes me think that maybe it's my drivers that are failing, or something's failing somewhere that's not giving me a clean, solid bead of filament. But with that said, I did have very good success with two other printers I reviewed for Weedo, including an IDEX printer, which has two individual hot end assemblies. And if you wanted to do multi-material or dual color, I feel like that is definitely the way to go. So if you're interested in this type of printer, check out the Weedo ME40 IDEX printer that I reviewed, and I think you'd definitely be better off getting that. So with all that said, let's see how this print comes out that's printing right now, and we'll see what kind of results we get this time. Well guys, to my surprise, the spaceship actually finished, and even though it's not perfect and there's a few issues here and there, the print quality itself seems to be pretty good, or about normal, what you would expect. Now there are some holes here in between the printer, like here, I can stick my whole finger in there. It does seem quite fragile and thin, so there's a really high chance I'll probably break it, but I'll try to be careful. But let's go ahead and release it and see how easy we can get it off the build platform. It is quite large here, and sure enough, once I flex it, it seems to pop off. Now it doesn't completely pop off because the center doesn't flex at all, but we can go underneath with a spatula and easily break the rest of it loose, just as long as we can get underneath any corner, and flexing a little bit helps us do that. So yeah, simple as that. Now it's completely loose. So let's really carefully here look at this. Even though it appears to be a really good, I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but there's definitely something funky going on. There's like this grain pattern in the whole print, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's a little bit hard to see it, and it's not as noticeable on some parts. On this one here, you can see probably the best. And this is really weird, and this is what's showing up in all the prints now. So, but as far as the overall print, it does look good. The bottom is, pretty much perfect there. So we did have a separation here on the bottom, and then when we go up here, we can see this logo here, and not too bad. There is quite a bit of ghosting going on. You can kind of see on that A, and about the typical pattern from print, but not too bad overall. And you can see the ghosting there again on the G. So as we go up, this part all looks pretty good, and this is really nice here. but we got a lot of disconnection here where it wasn't able to stick to itself, and same thing up here. And as we go up, we can see there it did pretty well until it got to the top and it melted together. So cooling is good but not great, and impressively enough the ball also finished, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it did manage to print this pretty large spaceship, and we are 400 millimeters tall on this, and it is at the very top, and I don't think it was even able to home itself because it hit the top. All right, and so this pretty much concludes this video, and you know, this is everything we've managed to print. We had a pretty good start and then things kind of went wrong, but at the end of the day, you know, it's all valuable information, I would hope. So again, I don't want to say that I absolutely do not recommend this printer, because as the experience I have here, not everyone has the same things. If you are considering this printer, maybe watch a few more reviews and also read some reviews to get a better idea of what you're buying. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, I do have a pretty interesting printer coming up, and it's going to be the last one of this year, so stay tuned for that. And also check out my playlist. I have quite a few reviews there that you might find interesting. And if you are interested in this printer, I'm going to have some links in the description. Check that out. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.